And I remember I finished the dishes, I sat down, and I thought, okay, not today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because the one part of my brain was like, right, well, okay, yep, right, that's it. We've made that decision. We've made that choice. This is what we're going to do. I intellectually know that this is going to cause pain and suffering among my friends and family, but I personally just don't have a reason to be alive anymore. I just don't. So I will just have to do this. The other part of my brain just said, okay, that's fine. Not today. And so after that, it was I would get up each morning. Okay, not today. Right. Next day. Okay, not today. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to feel great or wonderful. Okay, not today. And it was literally, not to date it. That's bad
Yes.
English.
Yes.
But I
get it.
again and again and again. And of course, eventually I was like, well, this is too much to unpick on your own. You're going to have to try and find help.
Welcome back. We are on today with my guest Shamiso Mushambi on the Too Old for This Shit podcast. I'm your host, Angie Sorensen. Come find me at angies.com, that's angie-s.com, or on my Linktree, which is linktree/Too Old for This Shit, link in the show notes. Those are the places to go if you want to be part of my community, learn how to podcast, and get involved with what I do. So, if you like this show, please give it a 5-star rating and a review, and be sure to tell your friends, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you're listening to right now. The more you do that, the more it helps new listeners discover the show. So just some listeners' notes. This episode contains topics such as depression and suicidal ideation. Although if you have been a listener for a while, this is not new to you, but I'm just letting you know as this may not be something you'd want to be listening to today. But there is, however, mention of pedophilia. No details around what happened. It's literally just dropped in, but I wanted you to be aware of it, and so discretion is advised. For any mental health crisis helplines, I've included details for the UK, US, and Europe in the show notes. In today's episode with Shamiso, please note this was recorded in December 2020, so you will hear a few things in this episode from back then, and so it goes to show what a short few months can do. From August to November 2020 last year, internally I was in a deep turmoil, and I did not know if I'd ever get back to myself again. And so I hope this helps whoever needs to hear this, that, things they really do, they change around, but, you just have to hold on. Don't give up, basically. Really don't give up. And make sure you surround yourself with authentic people who don't gaslight you. That is actually huge. That's just like a little note for this week. So without further ado, please help me give a big, warm welcome to the wonderful Shamiso. Let's begin. Welcome, Shamiso.
Hello, Angie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. These are a little bit hectic times. It's a Saturday. Wait, let me check. I don't even know what's the date today. It's the 12th of December.
Who even keeps track of that anymore?
I know, I don't. I keep getting all the days. I get the days wrong. I get the days wrong. So I'm just gonna come out and say it. Basically, I emailed yesterday Shamiso in a panic because there were
me into a panic.
I thought we were interviewing yesterday. I thought I was interviewing 2 people yesterday, and I'm having 2 recordings today. So I got myself very confused. And so yesterday, literally about not long before, I thought we were recording at 11, which obviously we weren't. It was 2. So anyway, I was very confused. So just before 11, I had a recording with someone else, but I thought it was with Shamiso. And roadworks were starting to literally took place in that morning. I had no idea. It was not planned. There was just drills. I mean, maybe it was planned, but I did not pay attention. Anyway, it was these heavy drills. They're they're so loud you can't even think. You're pissed off even being at home. And I'm not the type to go outside in a pandemic to say, hey, excuse me, how long are you going to be here for? It's been silence for
no.
Yeah. So I was just so I emailed Shamiso. from my personal email address saying, hey, by the way, can we reschedule? And then I realized in my haze, oh, that may go into a spam folder. So then I emailed you from my business email. And then the minute I sent it, I looked at my calendar and I was like, oh no.
No, and you know what? I could like sense the panic in your email as well. I was like, the panic was palpable, and I was like, oh shame. 'Cause when you said the second one, I was like, okay. That's when I really started to panic. I was like, oh, I'm actually late. Oh shit, I'm late, and I was at work at the time, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to respond. And then you sent a follow-up email saying, no, it's all good, and then I calmed down, but I could like sense the panic.
So no, I actually thought that you were just completely going to cancel me at that point, because I was like, but I was like, oh, I'm sorry, we're not till tomorrow. Which meant that actually the person I was recording yesterday, I got notified her 10 minutes before, because by the time I got round, like, it's sending you all these false alarm emails. I don't like
wrong
really
person.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like to the other person, I was like, so anyway, the other person was just scheduled for Tuesday, so that's fine. But like, okay. I was just like, I hadn't had a coffee. I'm just like, so I'm actually very surprised that we both got on the call at the same time, because I don't even know what day of the year it is anymore. Yeah, sorry.
I've now I've entered into a kind of like a giving up mode. Like I'm just like, I'm not going to bother keeping track of things. I'm not going to pay attention to what's going on externally. This, that, or the other keeps changing, but I'm just going to, I give up now. It's too much. My brain doesn't have the capacity anymore.
I have no capacity for news anymore.
I don't have I was saying this exact thing to my best friend the other day, and she was like, oh, do you remember Brexit? And I was like, no. Yes, but I can't even like engage with you on that. She was like, I can't either. Something's happening. There's a deadline. Is there? Oh, good. Well, yeah. I can't. There's not enough room in my brain.
I know. It's like, oh, is that still going ahead after this whole pandemic? It turns out it is. So
it turns out it is. Exactly.
I don't even know if it's a hard deal or a soft deal. I mean, or a semi. I mean, we don't know at this point.
She mentioned Brexit, and I was like, are we still doing that? And she was like, yes. And like, I don't have the brain space for this.
I can't. I'm just like, but I was going to say, I mean, we're going to get into it a little bit, but because you're an accountant, and the whole thing about accounting is to be in control of numbers, right?
Oh, gosh, yes.
That's like the opposite of, you're probably the only people in control of 2020.
Well, I actually attended a seminar the other day, which the premise of the seminar was that accountants are going to save the world. And I was like, really?
But I kind of think so. I mean, I only want to date accountants now. I dated an accountant during lockdown. He was busy.
That's the thing, I will say.
He was more busy than normal. And I'm like, someone's got some normality to their life. It's quite nice.
I will say that I am blessed, because this like that line of work does mean that I have stayed in work through very difficult times, like economically. But honestly, there's nothing I would like less than to spend any kind of time with other accountants. People are always like, oh, like, aren't you excited about accountancy? And like, when I go off to conferences, they're like, oh, you'll be with other accountants. And I'm like, yes, that's the worst part of it.
No, but I think people with like regular, like, like what you'd call like a vanilla job, like safe job, you guys are probably like the most freaky people. Because you got to make it up, right? It's like when you have like the head of a company, he's going to be probably most likely to be like submissive in bed.
Yes, that is a thing, isn't it?
Someone who's maybe like cleaning a school is going to be like the boss in the bedroom, like, don't tell me what to do, Yeah, I don't know. It's just a fantasy of mine.
I mean, all the accountants I know are, I mean, they're very nerdy people. The ones that I know, they're very passionate about accountancy. They're very much like, oh, I love it. Like, I love ordering numbers, and I love all this. And I'm like, I'm an accountant because it's a function, right? Like I did it because I was like, yeah, no, that's fine. I want to be able to support myself. That makes sense. It'll give me room to do other things.
You're so reasonable.
Yeah, well, it has been the sensible choice for many years, but I'm very much like, close the laptop, finish accountancy. Whereas I know other accountants who were like, no, I love it. I live, breathe, and eat it. I stay up late and I read accountancy articles. And I'm like, oh, no.
Well, you know what? But fair play on both situations. I think if you can close a laptop and then have another life, and we're going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
And I have not even introduced you properly. I'm so sorry. I mean, 2020, everything goes. But I want to introduce you properly.
Okay,
so
cool. Yeah.
I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because we're going to talk about, and who knows, maybe we're going to talk about other things too. But like the idea, like when we connected a little while back, I wanted to talk to you about, this whole 2020 thing.
Yeah.
But, still making fun of it, making fun of ourselves, not too serious, but like a little bit like 2020 because, we had to really get to know ourselves.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Life was a curveball. I think we're all finding this out. And then, and being, quote unquote strong and, what that evokes for you and what people mean by that and the good, the bad and the ugly in general of 2020. So before we dive in, please introduce yourself, where you live and what you do.
Okay, I'm Shamiso Mushambi, and as I mentioned, by day I work as an accountant. So I basically spend my time counting other people's money, and then in the evening I pursue a whole bunch of creative pursuits. But I would say definitely being an accountant is like my job, but I would say my purpose is much different to that, and that is definitely to tell stories. I would describe that as my purpose in life, is telling stories, facilitating other people telling their stories as well. That kind of connection through comedy, through making people laugh, that kind of thing. That's the stuff that lights me
up. You're being really humble. You're a stand-up comic.
Yes, I am a stand-up comic.
Yeah, you can say you're a stand-up comic. Yeah.
I always get really shy about that kind of thing. I'm like,
why?
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. As a stand-up, sometimes you know what it feels. What do they call it? Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I feel like one day someone's gonna tap me on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, you've been calling yourself a this, that, and the other, and it's not true." But nobody has so far. So you're right. Yes, I'm a stand-up comic, storyteller, and I'm a presenter as well. So yes, that is me.
And you have a show called Comedy Pops, right?
I do indeed. I have a show called Comedy Pops. It's an online show right now, but it might evolve in the future and become a in-person show, hopefully. But yes, it's an online comedy night. It's every couple of weeks. It's free. It's a very warm and welcoming environment. I have loads of regulars now. And yeah, it's a really lovely, warm, international community of funny people and audiences getting together and just trying to shine an hour of light into what's been quite a dark year for a lot of people. So.
But you've had quite some big names come through on your Comedy Pops, right? I feel like I need to be doing your PR because you're so humble.
Thank you. We're actually now that I've been doing this for a few months now, I'm actually kind of reaching the point, like I've started making relationships within the industry, and they're the kind of relationships I never thought I'd be able to access beforehand. But now I've been able to talk to people about booking pretty well-known comics. Like the most well-known comic that we've had today on is a comedian called Rosie Jones, who I absolutely love. She's fantastic. And on the night that she appeared on our show, she actually saved the show because one of the other comedians, who I will not name, turned up quite drunk. Yeah. And completely unable to perform. He switched on, obviously it's an online show, we do it via Zoom, and he switched on his camera and it was all dark and shady, and I panicked because I was like, oh, holy shit, he's masturbating. Holy shit. That's
was
always
he?
like
Was he?
No, he wasn't.
Okay, so he didn't do a Louis C.K. on you. That's a
no, he didn't do a Louis.
Allegedly,
right? Yeah. No, he was not masturbating, thank God. But that's always like every time I do it, that's always my number one fear. Is like it's going to be like people masturbating. There's going to be all sorts of things happening, and that's what I was scared. It just turned out he was drunk and high. So he actually couldn't perform.
So a regular Friday night in London.
Exactly, a regular Friday night in London. He was having a very, very regular lockdown.
Yeah, a very regular lockdown, yeah.
And yeah, but anyway, like Rosie was absolutely fantastic, and she extended her set and did more material, and brought the virtual house down. So yeah.
So okay, so you're a stand-up comic, and yes. And you do, obviously you do many things in comedy, because now you're organizing this online comedy show, which maybe hopefully when we're allowed back out into the wild, we can maybe have it in person. Yeah. How did you even get into stand-up comedy? Because you were doing accounting, or were you doing stand-up first? Like, what's the story?
Well, I am a frustrated actor. as so many people in stand-up seem to be. So I started out as an actor.
Were you an accountant the whole time as well when you were acting?
For some of the time,
Okay.
yeah. So I was an actor for about 7 or 8 years. I started out when I was 18, and I was doing all right for myself, working in theatre and doing short films and all this sort of stuff. And the work just kind of dried up, and I kind of reached a point of frustration. And I trained as an accountant during my daylight hours because I thought, well, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I want to be able to work. And I wasn't sure how well I would cope with the kind of casual jobs that actors usually do, like waitressing and bartending and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they're quite physically demanding jobs.
Yes.
And so I knew that at least with accountancy, I could close the laptop or my workstation at the end of the day and walk away and still have the energy to do something else. Whereas I didn't think if I was doing 8-hour shifts in a restaurant, I'd still be able to have the energy to go work.
Yes.
As an actor. And it swings and roundabouts because obviously people do those kind of jobs for the flexibility, which there's less of when you're an accountant. But at the same time, I knew that I would be able to look after myself financially, and I wouldn't be rich or like massively wealthy, but I could at least put bread on my table and put a roof over my head.
It was definitely way more rich than any regular actor who was working in a restaurant,
Yeah, well, this
yeah,
definitely.
Which is good. I mean, reasonable. That's what I should have done.
Sometimes I think I was too reasonable. Sometimes I was saying this to a friend of mine. I feel like sometimes I was too reasonable.
Do you feel like you were missing the thrill of like, am I gonna make rent?
I mean, it sounds so sexy when you say it like that. Will I make rent or will I not make rent?
I know, that is the question.
Yeah, exactly. So I did that. I was acting for a few years, and then I knew I had a knack for making people laugh. And like I said, I kind of hit a wall in the acting career where I just wasn't getting auditions, nothing was happening, and I also knew I really liked writing. So I moved on to writing plays, writing jokes. I joined a comedy troupe. And then I met a friend of mine named Victoria, and then went on to form a comedy duo when we were a duo called What About the Bear for about 3 years. So yeah, we were sort of gigging in and around London, and that was really fun. And then when we stopped gigging, I decided to kind of carry on my own. And so I've kind of been bobbing along doing stand-up comedy since. I should say that Victoria and I are still very good friends. Like, it's not like we broke up and there was a massive bust up or anything.
No.
But so it's kind of evolved from one thing to another. And I think I've arrived at stand-up comedy kind of by zigzagging, because I knew in the back of my head, I kind of probably knew 10 years ago that I liked stand-up comedy and wanted to give it a go. But I guess maybe it goes back to something that we spoke about earlier. I guess I lacked the confidence to be able to say, I'm going to get up and tell jokes. I'm going to get up and try and entertain people. But it wasn't until kind of events forced themselves career-wise when I realized I was going to have to make work for myself, that I wanted to tell my own stories, that I was funny, that I wanted to connect with an audience.
Yes. Yes.
And that's kind of how I ended up taking comedy more seriously and then doing it on a more consistent basis. So,
do you know, this is funny because I don't actually think that I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast or not. If I have, sorry guys, just fast forward a few minutes or so. But because that's actually because I used to do stand-up comedy, and it's a little bit how I got into stand-up was because I was bored of acting, but mainly because I wasn't getting anywhere with it. So it was like I'd get to be like the last two in the auditions. I was always being the last two, the how do you call it?
We're gonna pencil you in.
That's it. Yeah. Last three to audition, go through all the process and then just not getting it. And I remember I was used to that, but the last two auditions, the big ones I went on, I didn't get them, and I was really gutted because I knew I did good on the audition. So it was like part of a comedy troupe, and it was actually paid, which was like huge at the time. This was like in 2007 or something. And it was like you'd be also writing, and so it was a bit different to acting, but it was a lot of comedy acting, but it was like, it was going through, auditions and stuff. And I didn't get them. And there was two of those. And I remember being really deflated about it. And I was like, that hasn't happened to me in a long time, because I'm used to go to audition and not get them because I'm shit at auditions. Like, I used to just get work from work, and then if I'm not working, I just wouldn't work, because the audition, I was terrible. So, it was just not good. So and one day, like, I remember I was so deflated. I was like, well, fuck this. I'm going to give myself a job. I'm just going to go and write my own stuff, and I'm going to do it. And that's how I got into stand-up, because I was like, I was tired of auditioning, waiting for someone to say, yes, you're good enough, you can be in. I was just like, I'm going to do my own. And
Yes.
I never regretted it. It was great. And also with acting, I didn't have it. I don't think, maybe I just wasn't good enough, or I just didn't know how to network. And I'm not really good at like ass kissing and chit chat and hey darling, I can't do that.
I had no idea how to schmooze.
And the thing is, I think I know how to do it, but I just can't be bothered. I don't like it. I don't like being fake. And if I don't like someone's company, I'm like, I don't need to be around.
You don't want to kind of play along.
Whereas stand-up, it was like, well, if you're good, you come back, because all they want to know is if you make people laugh.
Yeah, that's the only kind of prerequisite, really. And the thing about acting is that no one ever sees you the way you see yourself. I always knew that I was capable of being a comedic performer and performing in a wide range of roles. So, like, if I think about the kind of comedic performers that always used to make me laugh as a child, like, for example, Jim Carrey was a massive idol to me because of his physical comedy and his elasticity in performance. And that was something that I felt I could bring, but I knew the shape of the industry was such that nobody would look at me and think, oh, she could deliver that same level of physical comedy, she could deliver that same level of elasticity in performance. And that was part of what got me into writing, is because I thought, well, this the only way that I can show people that I'm capable of delivering this myriad of characters, this range of voices and personalities, is if I'm the one writing and creating that work. Because I felt like the industry only really saw me as what, like, I kept getting auditions for things like judge, police officer, nurse. And those are fine, people who look like me exist in those roles in real life.
So what do you mean look like you? Because this is like an audio channel.
Of course. Oh,
okay,
sorry.
So if people haven't seen you, or if they, and obviously I encourage everyone to go in and Google Shamiso afterwards.
They want to go on and stalk me online.
Yeah. But just wait till the end of the episode. But what do you mean when you say people like me? What do you mean?
Oh, yeah. So I'm a petite Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I kind of have like my look is such that people always think of me as an authority figure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Judge, police.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
okay. Yes.
Like an authority figure, like a caring figure, and work is work. So I would never turn those roles down. I was always like, this is experience. I'm going to go on and hopefully build something out of this. But oftentimes, like you, I will get down to the final 2 or 3, like just not get it, or else I realized that I was never going to be able to break out and show people what else I was capable of if I was sitting around waiting for someone else to tell me, to have the vision to see me.
You cannot wait around. And this is this message, because it's about taking ownership, taking control of your life. Because actually what you're saying, interesting enough, is kind of like what I remember when I was really deflated about mine. And so it would circle back to you, but it's just like my mom said to me on the phone, and I didn't think about that at the time. She said, well, maybe it's just because they were troops, so you're part of a, performing group, right? And she said, and it was all women. And then she was like, maybe you just didn't have, maybe it was just a look thing. Maybe you didn't have the look that they were looking for. And it's so true, because when you actually audition, people already have an idea in mind of what they
do.
And obviously the cliche for me is very different to the cliche of yours, 100%. But I can see why you probably felt, even more so, that, trapped in this, like, you have to be like the authoritarian or strong or angry or whatever it is, like the cliche.
Kind of like authority figure, telling people what to do and all that sort of stuff.
It's a bit actually interesting enough, because when you said that, and I don't know if I was like, oh, am I going to get in trouble for saying this or not? But when you said that about judge and authority figure, and I was like, my mind went straight to Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, that kind
of. Is it Miranda Bailey?
Yes, exactly.
Right?
That's exactly the kind of similar casting that I would get called up for.
And it's funny because I love that show, and I used to think love really strong female characters in there. Yes. They're not just wives and girlfriends. They're actually doctors and stuff. But you're right; she is actually the quite strong, looking, angry female.
Yes,
right?
exactly that.
Which is
That.
probably what you picked up on. I didn't, right? But I get it. I understand why I don't see it though. But yeah, it's true. It is yeah. So sorry. So then you took destiny into your own hand and not waited.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I realized that the more writing that I did, the more I was kind of telling stories from my own, perspective, the more satisfying that experience was, because I was connecting with people on a different level than you would do necessarily if you're sitting, or trying to perform the role of a judge or a nurse or whatever. And the thing is, I love acting still. I still love acting. I still, if somebody handed me an acting job today, if I could do it, I most definitely would.
That's what I said too. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I definitely, there's a different kind of satisfaction that comes from speaking your own words and speaking your own story and truth. And I think that's where that process of thinking in my head is how I've kind of come to the conclusion that I don't just want to be an actor. I also want to tell stories and help other people tell theirs.
Yeah. And that's also, you sort of took also ownership of the situation as well in 2020, because that's how Comedy Pops came about, right? Because
Yes,
there was no in-person. All the comics I know, they all got cancelled. Everyone got cancelled. There's no,
yes,
so there's a big loss of income for the clubs, for the individuals. So it's like many industries, it's been really tragic, devastating. So
devastating.
So the whole online thing, is people have been doing it, and I think, can you tell us a bit, like, maybe, because this is going to link a little bit about what was 2020 like for you, because okay, so because before the pandemic, can you tell us a little bit, the lead up to 2020, and then what happened in 2020 for you?
Yes, so I had big plans in 2020, and I was for 2020 rather, and I will say that I have, by and large, through some way or another, managed to achieve those plans. So I had particular goals for myself. I was like, I'm going to find a new job. I'm going to dip my toe back in the sexy world of dating.
And was that in 2019? You thought that for 2020?
Yeah, definitely. I was like, these are my plans for 2020. I'm going to find a new job. I'm going to get back into dating.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to reconnect with acting. So I'm going to try and go back out there again and see if the experience is still the same. Because as I've become a more mature individual and have started, although not completely successfully, to come to terms with who I am and accept who I am, the greater I felt I had to offer as an actor and a storyteller and a comedian. So I thought, well, I want to re-explore those avenues. So those are my 3 goals for 2020. And I will say that I have been very, very productive in 2020, and I have managed to do all those 3 things. But I will also say that it has also come at a massive cost to me on a personal level, because 2020 has been a kind of year of extreme highs and extreme lows. And outwardly, I would say like I said, I've been very productive. I've been doing this, that, and the other. I started Comedy Pops, and I started Comedy Pops because it was out of loneliness.
Yes.
That was probably the first thing that kind of
because you live alone too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I live alone now, and that was entirely through choosing. I got my place last year, and I was ecstatic about doing that, and I bought my flat so I could be on my own. But then obviously 2020 happened, and I was just on my own, and it was disgusting. And so I started Comedy Pops because I was so lonely. And also, I really wanted to connect. I mean, one of the best things about the creative arts and the community is that connection, is working with others, is, vibing off of people, is having an audience. And all of a sudden that was cut off, like so many other performers, or that was just cut straight off. And starting Comedy Pops was a way to kind of reconnect that. And I also particularly wanted to connect with performing artists, creative people of color. And for me, I know there's kind of a debate going on about whether or not you can call people of color like BAME or people of color or anything like that. I'm not particularly fussed. But I just wanted to connect with people who were similar to me, who also wanted to go out there and connect and make stories happen and do something. And I thought, well, people say if you build it, they will come. So I started the online community thinking I'll do a couple of episodes, and it's been going on for months now. I think we've done, God, coming on to 50 episodes, I think.
Wow, 50.
Yeah, it's really like, it's really, yeah, it's carried on.
Impressive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes.
And I'm super proud of what I've been able to achieve. I say we, there's no one else, it's just me. It's just me.
That's the imposter syndrome playing.
Yeah, that's imposter.
I used to have also for a while at one point, I used to always say we for things, and I'm like, that's just me, actually, it's I.
That's exactly it. Like, I find myself, when I approach comedians, I was like, we would love you to be on our show. Who the fuck is we? Who?
Yeah,
there is no we. It's just me. And be like,
me.
Yes. So, me and the voices in my head.
Yeah.
Me and my production team with 20 people. We'll get back to you. So me. So I created that, and there's been some extreme highs, and definitely Comedy Pops has been a high for me, because it's picked me up when I was down. I've connected with people. I've learned a lot about what it is when you're running your own thing, both from a technical aspect, embracing Zoom and all that sort of stuff, and also marketing. I've learned how to market. I've learned how to edit videos and do all sorts of things that if you told me at the start of 2020 I'd be doing, I'd have been like, no. I've told more jokes through Comedy Pops than I ever have before. I've, met this fantastic community of international comedians, particularly women, who I've been able to connect with internationally, who are just so fucking funny. It's enough to make me faint. And it's been so wonderful in that respect.
It sounds like you had a really productive, happy year when I'm listening to you, like, because obviously, so you got a new job. So I'm assuming that when you say new job, like a new accounting job.
Yeah, a new accounting job, yeah.
You've been, because you said there was 3 things. There's new job, dating, acting. And with that, you hadn't even mentioned Comedy Pops. So there's Comedy Pops, new job, you're out there dating, and you're acting. Yes. Which we're going to get into in a bit, because I want to know a bit more about those, especially the dates.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But so when you say but you said something quite markant, which was it all came at a personal cost.
Yes.
What do you mean? Because I would have thought that dating would be, I mean, it's obviously its own bag of stuff as well when we date.
It's its own bag of dicks.
Yeah, own bag of dicks and triggers. Which one are you going to pick first? So it's like, so what is it that, so what do you mean by personal cost?
Yes. So the thing about the lockdown experience is that when it happened, it kind of triggered a kind of grieving process in me. I felt very like I was grieving, and I didn't know how to process those feelings. And then I guess I kind of, out of not being able to process those feelings, I kind of, I would describe it, I entered into a kind of fight or flight mode, like a heightened state of being. And it was kind of, I would describe it most succinctly as survival mode. And that's a mode which, when I was a child, that I existed in when I was a child and when I was a teenager. And that mode was very helpful to me because it helped me survive some traumatic experiences. And that survival mode is a very tough mode. It's a mode where I will get up every day, I will exercise, I will feed myself 3 times a day, I will work, I will be productive. There's a comedy show happening, I will book comics, I will write comedy, I will, do this, that, the other. If somebody says, let's go climb a mountain, I will climb a mountain. It's a very productive mode for me.
It's a very high functioning breakdown.
It's a very high functioning mode. And like, I acknowledge now that outwardly it looks like, everything's fine. But the problem is with that survival mode is that there's no mercy for for the part of me that is struggling.
Yeah. And
I would say, the first time around when I was existing in survival mode during my teenage and childhood years, it took a good amount of therapy and counseling to unravel that and get me to unwind and connect the I suppose the softer part of myself to the tougher part of myself and live as a whole person.
Yeah.
Rather than just in one part of my head.
Yeah.
But the sacrifice of survival mode, I still got up, I maintained a job, I was doing all sorts of other things and looking after myself outwardly, but the sacrifice was I actively suppressed and buried all the other things that were happening inside my head. And the grief, the anger, and all those kind of things kind of settled in my brain like a kind of like I would describe it as a crushing weight of sadness and this shadow that was always lingering in the back of my head. And but like I said, very high functioning when I'm in that mode, and so that mode, it actively suppresses all that other stuff. Like every sad emotion, every time I felt awful, I would describe it as I would go into the backyard of my mind, dig a big hole, push it into the hole and bury it. And it was, I did that for a long, I did that throughout lockdown. I very heavily suppressed the other things that I was feeling and experiencing and denied their existence. And I did that a lot for my childhood and teenage years, but I did that to survive because that was all I could do as a child, was to survive.
Yes.
But as an adult now, I'd switched back on that mode of being. And whilst outwardly I was doing all these things and being fantastic, and people were telling me, oh, this, it's amazing, you're achieving these things, but inwardly the crushing weight of the sadness and the shadow that was following me around, there was just I couldn't even process those feelings. I couldn't put them together, and it all came to the lowest point for me. And when I genuinely couldn't find a reason to exist, and that was the hardest point for me, is that I would, when everything was silent, when I was on my own, when I wasn't distracting myself by running a comedy show, working, dating, trying to decorate my flat, when I wasn't distracting myself with those external, in the quiet moments, and this rush of sadness and anger and self-hatred would come rushing at me. In those moments, I would be overwhelmed by a desire to just end it all.
Yeah. And that was during lockdown.
And that was the kind of the other side of that coin, which is that I did all these things, but those other things, survival mode is not good at taking care of me.
No.
I think my mum asked me, she was like, well, what are you doing for your self-care? What are you doing for your self-care? And I was like, what do you mean self-care? And she was like, are you like giving yourself time out? Are you chilling? What are you doing for your self-care? And I was like, well, I get up every day and I feed myself 3 meals. And she was like, that's not what I mean. I mean more than just getting up every day and feeding yourself 3 meals.
Mums, I mean, not to generalize, but many mums know. Sometimes my mom will call me when I'm like, and I almost can't pick up because I'm like, I know I'm not in a good zone, and I want to pick up when I'm in a good zone.
Yeah.
And she just knows. And she's like, are you okay? I'm feeling something. And I'm like, oh, gosh, you're so psychic.
It's crazy.
I'm really happy you're bringing this up, and you're bringing this up in a very beautiful way. You have an amazing voice, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you can hear like a beautiful soul coming through, like you're just like a beautiful person, beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
And so it is when you're in that mode of, I understand that mode of like, you, to survive, you don't let feelings come out, because the minute you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I experience it, the minute I do, it's like this gate opens.
Oh my God.
And I can't stop crying, and I'm like,
yes.
And because when I was a teenager, like the second part of my teenage years, I was such a bitch. I mean, I was, but I was like, I never cried. I was sick all the time though, but I never cried. And I'll be like, I would see people like all in their emotions and feelings, and I'd literally be thinking, what the fuck is wrong with them? Like, pull yourself together.
Exactly that.
I was like a man. I would literally, and men are not like that either, but I mean, that masculine side.
Kind of, detachment from your feelings.
Yeah, that very masculine trait that, anyone can have, any gender, non-gender can have, and it's that thing of, you don't even realize, something's going on. For me, like I knew there were things that I was supposed to be upset about, but I knew because it was so upsetting, I couldn't even deal with it. So I pretended it didn't exist. And sometimes I wish I had that now. Sometimes sometimes being so sensitive and vulnerable does not always work, especially when we're dating. It's like,
no.
I don't even know how to, sometimes, I'm like, well, I'm just going to retreat because I don't want you to see this side because, you don't need to be seeing this.
No.
Now you explained this, so beautifully. So when it all sort of came out, it sounds like almost like this wave was crashing and you couldn't repress it anymore. And you were having these, thoughts of like just ending it all.
Yeah.
What did you, because you're still here, thank God.
Yeah.
And this is what lockdown, I think, has done to a lot of us.
Yes.
I mean,
definitely.
That must have been quite frightening because it sounds like you'd been on this like really high functioning for a very long time.
Yeah.
And was this almost like your first time experiencing this?
Well, no. So there was when I was going through the first time around that I had the feeling that I couldn't live anymore. I was in my early 20s, and that was the first time I'd gone through kind of like a serious stretch of therapy. And that was really helpful in helping me process some childhood trauma and experiences. But at the end of that, there's a kind of, I don't know how else to describe it, like almost like a full circle motion that happens when you kind of come to the end of your course of therapy. If things have gone well, I guess, then hopefully if you come to the end of your therapy, you kind of come together at the end and you can live remade than what you were before. But that at that point, there wasn't a great deal of time between the end of my therapy and this kind of feeling of incompleteness. Yeah. And so I couldn't make the ends meet after therapy. And there were so many, the subjects I've been trying to deal with have been difficult. And for all the goodwill in the world, as much as they loved me and wanted to support me and help me, this was something my family couldn't do for me.
Yeah, family rarely could. Family really can. It's too close to home. When you love someone, you're so helpless. You're so helpless.
So helpless.
So helpless.
Yeah. For all the will in the world and the good intention, they couldn't help me. And so I literally could not think of a reason to live anymore. And I was literally ready to sit down and never get up. I can't think of a reason to live anymore. And what's saved me last time around was, and she doesn't know this, she might know this if she listens to this, is my best friend who saved my life. And she saved my life by, and it doesn't make any sense, out of context, but she does. I remember telling her how I was feeling and how like distraught I was, and she just sort of put her arm around me and told me that she was really proud of me.
Wow.
And yeah. And if I think about it now, it makes me really tearful. But because honestly, like just those words, I'm proud of you. Even though you're feeling broken now, even though you're upset now that you've gone through this process, I am proud of you. And I held on to that statement for many years to come. And I hold on to it now still. Yeah. And honestly, that saved my life because it gave me a reason to live, because I was like, right, okay. I can, even though I couldn't process it then and process the words then, it kind of gave me a path towards getting better and feeling well again. And so when I was feeling low, I remember the first time I thought during lockdown now, when I thought, I think I will have to kill myself, is I remember I was doing the dishes. I'd taken a coffee break from work. I was doing the dishes. I was so alone. I was so sad. And the wall of pain and suffering and weight was just like rushing at me. And I just thought, you know what? I know my family and friends love me. I know some of them need me. But I actually just don't have a reason to be alive anymore. I don't have a reason for myself. I don't have a reason. I can't find a reason for myself to live. And I think I just need to finish it. And I remember I finished the dishes, I sat down, and I thought, okay, not today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the one part of my brain was like, right, well, okay, yep, right, that's it. We've made that decision. We've made that choice. This is what we're going to do. I intellectually know that this is going to cause pain and suffering among my friends and family, but I personally just don't have a reason to be alive anymore. I just don't. So I will just have to do this. The other part of my brain just said, okay, that's fine. Not today. And so after that, I would get up each morning. Okay, not today. Right. Next day. Okay, not today. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to feel great or wonderful. Okay, not today. And it was literally, not to date it. That's bad
Yes.
English.
Yes.
But
No, but I get it.
yeah, again and again and again. And of course, eventually I was like, well, this is too much to unpick on your own. You're gonna have to try and find help. And I've gone to find help, and I'm on the waiting list to get help. So that's
good.
Yeah, and I absolutely encourage that for other people as well to get help, because the help is there.
And especially now, and obviously, I'm going to try and include some links in the show notes for people. So it's quite an international based listening ship. So, but for the UK, there's the NHS has this called IAPT, and it's like you can sign up, and it's basically, they came up during COVID, basically, because a lot of people are suffering for many different reasons. And a bunch of us of loneliness, living alone, which is triggering a lot of things for many of us. So,
definitely.
But they cover many other different things. People are just really scared of the virus and giving it to someone else. There's all kinds of different reasons why people need help at the moment, right? Yeah. So there's all kinds of things. So, and there's people, who don't like to be controlled, being like, that's my thing too. I don't like to have to obey to all this stuff when I can't see the enemy, you can't fucking see it. So many different ways, and it is free, and they're quite quick in turnaround, and I've had a good experience with it. So, whatever. So it's so there are loads of things going on at the moment, and definitely to come out and get help is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say it's interesting because I was listening to you, and it's just a really a constant reminder that, those feelings of, just what's the point?
Yeah. Totally.
Are very different can have very look different for different people. So, I was listening to you and I was thinking, oh, that's interesting, because that, to me, so, you're saying people, some of people in your family need you, people need you, do you have an outward purpose, but you're looking for this inward purpose?
Yes.
For me, I feel the main thing for me is if I'm not living on purpose, because for me, helping others, empowering others is super important. It's more that feeling, that inward feeling. It's not about what people say. It's more if I don't feel I matter, if I don't feel I'm involved in people's lives, if I don't feel there's a point, or that I'm actually adding, that's what brings me to the thought of, well, actually, I'll be doing people a favor by not being here.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what has actually stopped me, and again, it's that's what everyone's so different, right? The way you explained it, your experience is different. And for me, it's I have my mom, and for me, I know I can't do that to her.
No.
But one thing that I'm afraid of is that what if one day my brain, emotional life short circuits completely?
Yes.
And that's not, and I just can't even factor that in, because as you know, when you enter this darkness, you had a little voice going, not today, right? And for me, it's always okay, let me just stay, let's just get through today. Let's go through these next few hours and just take it a day at a time. And it's but what if one day I don't have that little reasonable voice?
Yeah.
That's what scares me, because
that scares me too.
Because I don't actually really want to die. I don't.
No,
I don't want to die. I think life is amazing, but if I feel I'm not making the most of it, sometimes that's what I've had this year. Is I felt like I am, and I'm 42, so maybe it's an age thing too. I don't know, but I feel like that I'm blocking myself, and I'm not making the most of this life, and I'm wasting it. And that is not
one of my biggest fears. Yeah,
exactly. And that's not worthy, because, I've grieved from a very young age, and I know time is finite. I know I've been very, very lucky, I have so many, many blessings, and I know how precious this all is. And I think it's almost the fact that I know how precious it is that I'm almost paralyzed to make the wrong choice, to what do I do? What do I do?
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And the thing is, I don't want to waste it, but I feel like if I'm wasting it, I may as well leave the space for someone else. And it's it's fucked up. I know.
It's a really fucked up cycle.
Fucked up cycle, yeah. But I feel like when I'm listening to, I'm like, it's interesting, because on the outside, it really, really looks like you can't tell because it really looks like you've got your shit together. And
yeah. And I think, we talk about being frightened by those feelings sometimes and worrying that one day you'll be overwhelmed by them and that you won't find the willpower to push through. The thing about my kitchen sink revelation is that it terrified me too, is because it was a wake up call for me in some ways, because it made me realize just how poorly my mental health was at that point, because I'd done such excellent work, digging various trenches in the backyard of my head, and suppressing all of them. Every day I'd, bury something else, bury something new. And there were many bodies in the backyard, and I didn't, I didn't realize how bad I'd gotten, how poorly I'd become, until I was sitting at the sink going, I just can't do this anymore. And I couldn't find a reason for myself. And that shocked me too. I couldn't come up with a reason for myself. That shocked me. I was like, because ultimately the journey to live, the decision to live, the choice to live is something that no one else can make for you. And if I can't be bothered to even make that for myself, then what's the point? And that was, it was a real turning point for me, because then it really smacked me in the face how poorly I had become and how big the weight in my mind had become.
Yeah. But this is interesting because I think what we are talking about here, and all these different emotions, and sometimes that feeling of void, and then that numbness. There's so many different feelings you can have in this. It could be void, numb, heaviness, like that physical weight.
Yes, physical weight, suppressing you. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like I describe it as like this, like invisible cloak, like in Harry Potter, like that. That's just, really, but instead of just being invisible, it's actually really heavy too, and it's like it feels like a physical disease. It really does. But I think that the reason why it requires so much resilience and trust and some kind of hope to get through it, because a lot of those feelings, many people don't want to feel them when they come up. And you get it because you suppressed them too for many years, right? I mean, we're very good at suppressing.
Yeah, I'm very good at it.
It's a very great skill to have. Like, it's useful.
Yeah, it's really very good.
Very good. And I think what sometimes, like, what happens, and maybe a bit of a tangent, but what happens is, like, people have a slight, they haven't even suppressed as much or whatever it is, but they start to feel these feelings and they numb it with alcohol, antidepressant, anti-anxiety. And don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against, like,
I mean, people have
I've been on antidepressant when I when I had my breakdown in 2010. Just as a bracket, this is how bad I was, because before I got onto those antidepressant medication, I was so anti-medication I wouldn't even take an aspirin, and it got so bad that it was a couple of friends actually who also saved me. And the second friend, she sat me down, and the reason why I called her is because the reason I called is because the first friend told me the week before, when he realized something was wrong, he actually took the train from West London up to North London to come and see me. He knew something was off. For months, I'd been basically, like, isolating myself. Like, apart from I was very high functioning at work. I got promoted 3 times in that year at work. I was having exactly. Very high functioning and completely drifting apart. And he came, and then when he realized what was going on, and he came to see me, he was like, and I explained everything, and he was like, you don't have to go through this alone. You can call someone. And that was revelation to me at 31 or whatever. How old I was, I don't know, 32 or 33, however, whatever. I think 32 was 10 years ago. So 32. That was news to me.
Gosh,
I was like, because I didn't feel like I could just call and bug someone about it. And I didn't even know something was wrong for the longest time. I was just like, I don't want to get up in the morning. In the weekend, I'm not eating. I'll work, I'll eat random stuff. But then basically it slowly got really worse and worse. And I think it was about a week later, I had this really bad anxiety attack in Lidl. Yeah. I actually had to run home because it was happening. I mean, it's a whole other story. But anyway, I got home and I couldn't leave my bedroom. And by that time, I'd lived in 7 countries, 6 of them by myself. Like I moved to a place and I literally start from scratch by myself.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's huge.
It's huge. But all of a sudden, I couldn't leave my bedroom. In this house share, I can't leave the house. Never mind the house, can't leave my bedroom. And I remember I bent down in half because my stomach cramped so much, the anxiety. It was like proper pain, like when you have like a gastro infection or whatever. And I remember those words that he said. And I was like, he'd already looked after me for the whole weekend. Let me call someone else. I was like, and so I called this friend who I knew she'd gone through her fair share of mental health and been on medication enough for years. So I was like, well, if I can call someone and be her, she's not going to judge me. So long story short, the reason why I was talking about the medication was that by the end of the day, that when she spent it with me, she said, what are your feelings about medication? She goes, I know that you don't like medication, but how do you feel? Like, would you consider? And my answer was, I don't even give a shit anymore. I just want this to stop. Like, I was like, just give me anything that's like legal, whatever, like before you kill me, basically. Just give me.
I don't want to feel this anymore.
I can't. I was so scared. It frightened me, but I had to get that stage of it frightening me.
Yeah.
To have a panic attack a little. I mean, it's funny now. It's funny, but like, so I was for a year. I was on medication, and it really helped regulate, but it didn't solve anything. And I think my point is that when I'm glad I came off them when I did, and I'm glad I was able to. Not everyone is able to.
That's right. Some people, it's a longer journey. Yeah,
it's a longer journey. Yeah, and I think the thing, what people. To talk about what you're saying about how we were feeling and the roughness of it when it really comes out, when you're not suppressing shit anymore, is that people have these things and they don't want to face it and they go straight to medication like Xanax when they have one anxiety attack and it's like, not saying it's not helpful, but I'm like, I know people who never want to come off because the minute they start to come off, you can feel really worse. I mean, it's not fun to come off medication. But then they wait, after a day, they give up, they go back on medication, and it's like, no, you're supposed to feel like shit for a little bit. You have to like process it. It's like a detox, like an emotional detox, having like a massive poo, but emotionally.
And not to mention what's happening to you physically when you come off it.
Exactly. And that's what you do little by little and stuff. But like people, even though they take down the dose, and it's like people don't want to face, and that's why you see now a generation of teenagers. They take these medication because they're feeling anxious. And I'm like, you're supposed to feel anxious. You're going up for exams.
It is an anxious milestone.
Yeah, but you have a reason to be anxious. It's like people were, the reason why when it's out of control is when you're at home and you can't leave the house.
Yes, when it stops you from functioning, when it stops you from living.
Function over something there is no danger. An exam is scary because it's like make or break. Are you going to go to uni or not? For at that age, that's what you think, right? But
yeah, of course.
It's like exactly. You can't handle an exam. Life is going to kick your ass, dude.
You're supposed to feel anxious. There's so many worse things that can happen to you.
Exactly. Have a chamomile tea, have a spliff, whatever it is you need to do. But just don't jump on medication straight away because you're scared of exam. And I know I sound judgy and whatever, I may get in trouble for this, that's fine. But it's just like there has to be a scale. And it's like, don't wait like you and I to have a complete breakdown.
Yeah.
But also don't jump on
Don't
jump for like because you're nervous for exams. That you're supposed to be nervous. It's like there's a normal anxiety, and
Yeah, it's normal to have that kind of those kind of feelings, and I definitely think like what you were saying earlier, like just now, is true. Don't do what we did.
Yeah, don't do what we did. Yeah.
Don't do what we did, because that's also not really good.
No, exactly.
I think that's been a really important lesson. Like people have obviously different coping strategies for dealing with emotional distress or anxiety or feelings of depression, and like I said, being in survival mode has been tremendously useful for me because I've been able to do all these wonderful things. But it's quite I'm pretty brutal to myself in the process. And so there is no the version of me that exists in survival mode is terrible at taking care of me. Excellent for getting things done. Excellent for getting things done, but terrible at taking care of me. And I think, I think everyone's got to find a way of kind of getting the balance where they continue to engage with life, but equally have mechanisms or tools available to them to help them cope with situations which are difficult.
Yeah. And some people, because we're going to go into dating, because I think for me, I'm expecting it, like I'm shit at it. Like relationships, I'm terrible. It's why I've got podcasts on it. I want to do better.
Yeah.
And I don't want other people to go through the experience I've had to learn whatever I needed to learn. So, but I think some people have really an easy time, or easier. I think everyone has struggles, but easier time in relationships. And so I wanted to ask you, because, you mentioned dating. So, and we've just talked about mental health. Is this how do you find that dating is a trigger, and how do you bring it up? Like when you're in how do you, can you tell us about your dating, and then, how do you marry the two?
Yes. So dating, I mean, I'll come on to this eventually, but dating for me is actually also one of the reasons that I've decided I want to go back into therapy. And I've decided to tackle that, because I think, God, my brain is like, there are so many things, so many points at which I could start. I'll start by saying this. I've yet to be in a proper long-term relationship. And that's something that I want for myself. I do feel, despite everything that I've said about, struggling with mental health and feeling poorly in that way, that's something that I still want for myself. And of course, everybody deserves to be loved. And I do think I'm capable of functioning in a healthy relationship. But I will say that I now see, with the benefit of hindsight, that there are things around my survival mode behavior which, are not great for trying to form attachments to people, and are stopping me maybe from forming, kind of getting close to people, or forming.
Like what, for example? Like what stops attachment?
So I would say, I mean, I'll be very frank, because I feel like I can't use euphemisms for this and expect.
Oh yeah, you can be as frank as you want.
Yeah, I'll be very frank. Yeah,
the listeners here are quite used to it. It's fine.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, they're good people.
Okay, good. So I would say, the main reason that I went into counseling the first time around is because I needed to process sexual abuse that I experienced when I was a child. And so, but the issue, and many people who have survived sexual abuse experience this, but sometimes it really colors or disables your ability to form healthy attachments, disables your ability to to connect with other people. And I really found that for myself. When I did my first round of therapy, it really helped me unlock some of those feelings and deal with those feelings, and helped me process that. But what I did after therapy is that after a few years of having acclimatized some of that information and dealt with it, I was like, great, I'm fixed now. This is not going to affect my dating life at all. La, 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 la. I'm going to date. Everything's fine. Everything's not fine. It's still, there is still a part of me that's, having to navigate the feelings around intimacy, or pleasure, sexual contact with somebody else. There's part of me that's still navigating those issues. And also, and this is not anything to do with anything, but I come from a single parent family where that, I didn't have an example growing up of what a relationship looks like. What a proper relationship looks like. And I think in some ways, your psychological state mirrors your relationship status, for me anyway. And so, going through dating as a 20-something-year-old during those times, I didn't have an idea of what a relationship looks like. I was very much used to being on my own. I'm a high-functioning survivor. And that none of those things are a good combination for being vulnerable and allowing intimacy to take place. For me, the issue, and this is something that this is, for me, my work in progress, what I'm continuing to work on, is that sometimes if people are trying to get close to me, I'm shutting down. And I think the shutting down is a survival mechanism, because obviously a lot of people who've experienced sexual abuse will maybe during those experiences have had to shut down as a means of surviving. And so when confronted with the possibility of intimacy of any kind, that's my brain's automatic hiding place, is to shut down. And so now, but the disadvantage of that, it stops you from living. I want to have those connections with people. I want to experience that intimacy with someone. I have it, the healthier part of my brain, I have it to give, and so I want to receive as well.
Yeah.
And so that kind of understanding, recognizing I can't unpick this by myself, is also part of the reason that I've decided I want to go back into therapy, is because I might not be able to unpick this, but hopefully with help I can. And I want to unpick it. I can visualize a future in which I am in a functioning, healthy relationship. I have no idea what that looks like or what it feels like, but
No, but the thing is also is accepting that that there are going to be ups and downs and people fight. But I was just going to say, because you said some like really important things here, and I just wanted to mention like 3 things, if you don't mind.
No, go for it. Yeah,
because you mentioned about obviously the intimacy and pleasure, and with the history of sexual abuse and stuff, that obviously being something that you are working on, and you sort of looking at and trying looking at a different way now, or it's something that's really understandable, that it's an issue, or it can be an issue, feels like one. There is someone that she's called Layla Martin. I've never interviewed her on the show, but like Layla Martin, she's someone who herself has experienced sexual abuse, and it was from her father. She's public about it, so I'm not
you're not like divulging anything. Yeah,
exactly,
secret. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And her business, she's actually, because she worked for a long time getting past all this stuff, and she we went to the same tantric yoga school. We're not friends. We were not like, it's not like that. Like, I'm not saying like I'm not doing a name drop. That's not what I mean. But it's like I know that she's done the work, and I've seen her before and I've seen her after. But I don't really know much. I don't know her. I haven't seen the evolution, but I see her now, and I'm just so impressed. Like, this is someone who, had a very traumatic experience, and her job, her business online is she helps women in the and you don't have to have had like a sexual trauma, sexual abuse to do her programs. But one of the things that she addresses is that, and one of the things that she says is, and it's part of her work, and so I would encourage anyone who's had abuse to maybe look at what she does, because she really shows how you can then own your sexuality again.
Yes.
And she talks about, and I don't know if it's her or someone else I've heard this from, but anyone who's had that kind of abuse, whether it's as a child or an adult, the part that where you I don't know how to word it, I don't know what the word is, but it's like not the biggest revenge, but it's like kind of is to basically enjoy sex again, because that is such a, because and it's that bit of like, that is how like like you've overcome it to actually enjoy sex again, and to not have that taken away from you.
Yes.
And so that's what I would say on that, with Layla Martin. And then I know you mentioned about shutting down. I wonder, because you're talking about attachment, I wonder if you'd read the book Attached. I think it's the Attachment Styles. Is that familiar to you?
No, I've never read that.
Okay, so it's Attachment Style. Let me just see. Let me find attached book author. Let me just find, because there may be several books of the same. I think, let's say it's a book by Amir Levine and Rachel Feller. It's called Attached. And that talks about some of us are secure, some of us have a secure attachment, others have avoidant attachment, others have anxious attachment, and some have a mix. But it shows how you can basically overcome it. And it may not be the gospel on attachment, but I enjoyed the book, and I think a lot of people do enjoy it, because it explains a few things why you may attract certain type of people. And then the last bit is a previous guest called Jerry. I don't know if I can't remember how you pronounce it. Jerry Souter, but it's Souter. She was a guest on the podcast, and she's like a love and intimacy coach or love coach or something. And she said something in the episode where that fear of the commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are three main things that happen when you start to get attached to someone, and there are three fears for those of us who have those fears. One is the fear to be seen. 3 is the fear to be heard. And 3rd is the fear of commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, and fear of commitment? Either way, it's like seen, heard, commitment. But, I mean, I want to be seen, but I'm also afraid to be seen by my partner. I want to be heard, but I'm afraid to be heard. And fear of commitment, 100%. But I want to commit. So those things are like, I found those things kind of helps you to also see that, all of us have got, we may have had different backgrounds and experiences. Human feelings are really human feelings. And those fears, whether it comes from how we're being casted as actress, because I guess like you could have the tall blonde woman, she's always casted as like the pinup girl or whatever. And then you have like a big guy, big fella, he also has to be jolly, has to be a jolly fella, and it's like all these things, and some of those have a bigger hurdles than others, obviously. I get that.
Overcome,
I get that. No, different histories, different this and that, and I understand that. So I'm not minimizing that bit. But what I mean by feelings is that, because you definitely have like this in your voice, this beautiful soul I can hear. And it's like, you are a beautiful woman. And those things that you feel are not abnormal. And they're very understandable when we've only talked for, a short while. So I don't know your whole story, but it's totally normal that you feel this way. But I also want you to know these things, that people have overcome and can overcome. And I think is looking for the help. And I think part of it, 50% is like wanting to do the work and having hope, like seeing the future as a good thing, right? And that is so important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. I know I've come to terms with the fact that, okay, right, I can't unpick these things on myself. I need help. Go get the help. But part of what's motivating me is I can visualize that I am capable of being in a healthy relationship. I can visualize that I can. I'm not saying that the minute I do therapy and then the next man I meet, he'll be the one and everything will be perfect.
You'll still have to do the work in a relationship. That's the thing.
Exactly. You still have to do the work in a relationship. But I can visualize the possibility. And I know that what stands between me and those possibilities is, going through that work and feeling those feelings and not blocking them for the sake of, for the sake of the outward performance of productivity, experiencing those feelings and allowing myself to be vulnerable rather than having, what I have done, which is massage vulnerability out of my life so that I don't have to contend with it. But now I recognize that it's very much similar to what we were saying earlier on, is that feeling of desiring to be whole again. And that means being whole both with your light self and the dark self.
Absolutely. And also like the more you are, like the more you are accepting of other people's shadows, right? Because all the men, even the man who seems to have their shit together, give them a few months, they will show you their vulnerability. and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. If you're always on the level, I'm not going to feel at ease showing you when I'm vulnerable, when I'm in tears and snotty and I'm like, world is collapsing around me. So I think, but the one thing I would say, because you mentioned about, obviously you from a single parent background, so am I, and you're quite independent, so am I, like all these things, I can relate to. And it's like one of the things that I had to learn, and I didn't realize this, is that because I was so obsessed about being self-sufficient, not needing anyone.
Yes, and so good at it too.
Including a man, exactly. I function, I can know how to function. One of the reasons why dating was failing for so long for me was that I'd be attracting these strong men who want to actually help
they want to be there for you, they want you to need them. I didn't see that. I was the one, I'd be like cooking and, I'd be like the perfect little girlfriend or woman or whatever. And because I never required anything or needed to ask anything, they started to feel they were not needed. And they would then walk away. And that was brought up to me by Catherine Bejanaya, the therapist who used to be who's come on the podcast too. And she said, okay, to put it, for me to understand it, like why it's okay to show you need a man. Not that you need to survival, but you kind of like him to do a few things around the house. It's like she said, okay, so when you cook a meal for him or give him a massage, how do you feel? Like, how's that for you? I was like, oh, it's great, I love it. And she goes, that feeling of satisfaction you get from it, you're robbing that from him. You're not allowing him to have that feeling. That feels good for him to come and do something for you, help you with your shopping, do something, And I was like, oh, it didn't even enter my consciousness.
It didn't even enter you. You're just being a fabulous, self-sufficient.
And listen, now I'm letting them. I'm like, so you want to put a shelf up? I'm still waiting for a man to put a shelf up. But anyway, like the last one didn't.
I hear you.
Now I'm like, if someone wants to help me, like cut the chicken when I'm making a roast chicken, or someone wants to put the shelf up, honestly, I'm getting very turned on. That's really hot for me.
That is amazing. And I totally understand. It's you become so good at being self-sufficient and taking care of yourself, and it can be hard for someone else to see where they fit in.
Yes.
And it's funny that we're even having this conversation, because I know for certain that's part of my experience as well. And it's funny because even talking to my mum and listening to her experiences, that's one of the things that many men have told her, is that she's so self-sufficient. She's raised 3 very high functioning adults who are very who are independent and all this sort of stuff. And we beat the statistics, and but none of them knew what to do for her. They didn't they couldn't. Exactly it. They just didn't know what to do for her.
But it's also hard for her to let them in, right? Because I think because so both our mums were both bringing up children in a foreign country.
Yes.
I mean, Mama, there was no family around. She was really on her own. And so also beating the odds, she gave me a very good education. She grew up like having to go into the fields in the morning before going to school on her bike.
That's the same with mine, yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like she gave me what she didn't have. And
absolutely,
what I'm saying. So also, she had to be tough. There was no time for
no time.
I wasn't brought up as an only child. There's no time for like the all this stuff. That, and I think it must be hard for a woman like that. And your woman, your mom had 3 kids.
Yes.
That's more.
Yes.
Like, so of course, it must be hard to let someone in and mess with the system. You have a system in place. Don't come and mess the method.
No, exactly. You have everything completely under control. And it is. But I can definitely see I've replicated some of that behavior, because she's been so high functioning and so like self-sufficient. I've definitely replicated that kind of behavior in my relationships, and kind of taking a step back and recognizing that it's all right to let somebody in, and it's all right for that person to allow that person to do these things, little things for you, to allow that person to care for you in a way. That's I'm actively practicing that. Like I tried when I was dating during lockdown. That's something I kept telling myself. It's not to say that I expected somebody to come over.
The shelves up.
Yeah, exactly. There were definite limits to shelf stuff, because obviously during lockdown you weren't supposed to go anywhere near each other. No. Although people weren't supposed to go anywhere near each other, the men I was talking to were definitely just trying to come over.
Yeah.
Which is just, my mind was like, seriously, dude, honestly. But people excuse themselves from pandemics however they want to excuse themselves from pandemics.
But I think it's also a survival thing, right? Some people, they really need the physicality.
Yes, they do.
And it really is they will have their own breakdown. Some people really need to, especially extrovert, they need to be around people. And then you have people who really need to have sex or have been near someone else. They need that physicality. They need to be near someone else physically a lot more than others. And for them, it has been devastating. And so it's easy to go, you're fucking crazy, you're not respect. But in a way, it's how they survive, So are they going to die by isolation, or are they going to die by maybe catching a virus? That may not even kill them, because they may be part of the 80% that are going to be fine. So it's like one of those things where it's like it's we all have to justify. We all do the best we can.
Yes, that's true. That is really true.
Yeah,
and I think and that's not to say that for those people who part of how they survive through lockdown is needing to be physically close to someone. I definitely relate. I really wanted that too.
Yeah.
But I guess we all kind of do the maths in our head and come to different conclusions.
Is it worth the risk? Yeah.
Is it worth the risk? Especially because like I was in a bubble with my mom and I was like, it's not worth the risk. Yes, I 100% want to get laid, but I'm not sure it's quite worth the risk at this stage.
Well, yeah, if you live with your mom, and then it's definitely not. I would have also been like, not worth it.
God, no, it's not even, no. And I did the whole, meeting up in parks and stuff like that. And, I did meet two very different lovely men over the summer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not marrying either of them. But I guess that experience of kind of dating and all that sort of stuff, and kind of examining my own feelings, now that I had more time to examine my own feelings and how I interacted during those socially distanced dates in the park and all that sort of stuff. That helped me in a weird way. In a weird way, it was nice because there was no chance of physical intimacy at first.
Yeah.
Because we were both like, okay, well, you stay over there and I stay over here. And
well, I thought that was great, because that's how you connect, right? Yeah.
Because I was like, there's no pressure. He's not going to. Sometimes, some people are very physical on dates when even though you haven't met them the first time. And for me, I'm not necessarily like that. Unless I don't like it either.
I'm like, there's no need to touch me unless I'm.
There's no need to touch me. Yeah. Exactly. There's just no need to touch me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And unless I'm really into the guy and I really want things to go further and I really want to,
exactly.
I'm like, exactly. Let's just go back to your house. Let's just go back to mine. Whatever.
Yeah.
But those instances are pretty rare. Most of the time, I really need to warm up to that person. And so, the idea of having a socially distanced date, in a weird way, should have suited me quite well, because I was like, well, we're both kind of in this enforced distance. Let's just chat and get to know each other. But even though I thought that might benefit my style of dating, I actually realized that it did actually then require me to engage on an intellectual and an emotional level as well, and open up myself to the possibility of being intimate with somebody that way. If I wasn't going to be intimate with them physically, then at least intimate with them kind of through the interaction, through the connection, and realizing that I was finding that just as difficult that kind of did make me think, okay, maybe it's time to re-examine what's happening here. It's time to think about.
But maybe also because that person wasn't someone that you had that chemistry with in terms of a connection. I mean, for me, it's also like I feel now I'm back on the apps, and kind of like it's weird because yesterday I was like, the shop is closed. I don't want to be around any men. I don't want any men at all. None of them with anyone I've had in the past or new. I just didn't want. And then I was just like, someone said something, and I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, why am I limiting myself? I was like, maybe let's go back on the apps. And it's that thing of like, it's the meaningless chats, and it's like the amount of people you have to go through, because it's like, it's really hard to meet someone. It's not hard, but it takes time to meet someone that you can actually talk with every day for a few hours on the phone before you even meet,
it's really
effortless conversation, and that's a rare thing to have. It doesn't mean that you're going to be compatible and last forever.
No,
it's a good start. And so sometimes
it's a damn good start.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up because of that, because it's like, that's not every day that happens.
No, it's not. It's not every day that happens. And definitely, like the two guys that I did date, I went on multiple dates with each of them. And so I did get a chance to get to know them. And, I don't, the fact that I'm not dating either of them now, I don't regret that, because I can see that, they weren't really great fits. Neither was really a great fit for me. They both had good qualities. They're both good people, but neither was really a great fit for me. And you're right, having somebody that I can have great conversations with is, it's quite rare to make that kind of connection.
Yeah.
And, I could look. Well, I guess we're all kind of after the same thing ultimately, really, is to make that kind of connection. And I feel like in lockdown, I don't know, maybe people are moving at it through different ways, at different speeds. I guess for some people, connecting with somebody is merely having a conversation, whereas, I guess for me, it's that feeling of, when you meet someone and you're turned on by them, but inside your head. Yeah, that feeling is like, my brain is very horny right now for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the best kind of horny.
It's the best kind of horny, because it lasts so much longer. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that I'm really looking for, is to be turned on, to have my brain turned on by this person.
If you're a good man and you know how to do your thing, I'm not really gonna care. You could be wearing a bin bag for all I care. Like, if you're a good man and we have a good connection and chemistry, I'm good to go.
So that's so true.
When you were saying, I thought about something when you were talking about dating, you calculate the risks, right? Such an accounting term as well, calculating the risks, risk management. There was this meme of Missy Elliott, and I think it's something she put out during COVID. I definitely reposted it during COVID.
Yeah.
During lockdown, the first lockdown. And it's basically the lyrics of her song, one of her songs. And it's like, but it starts off with, before you go out in public, ask yourself, is it worth it? Can I work it? Can I put my thing down, flip it and reverse it? That is so true. It's so true. Because I was thinking at the time, and I was like, yeah, that's right. I need to, is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Can I work it?
You know what? That's absolutely true. I feel like every time you leave the house, there's a very long series of mathematical equations that you kind of go through in your head. What am I going to do? Who am I going to see? Who might I be exposed to? What what surfaces am I?
Plus justifying ourselves, because we all go around with double standards. It's like, well, I think it'll be fine.
Exactly.
It looks clean.
Everything looks clean. I will lick that. It looks clean.
It looks clean, exactly. It's been so wonderful to have you on. Thank you so much for being game and going to all these different places we talked about. So I always finish the interviews with the same finishing questions, and there's two of them. And the first one is, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Okay, it's a very tricky one. I have a lot of random things that I would tell my 18-year-old self, some of which is practical, some of which is a bit left field. But, in terms of the welfare aspects, I would definitely say that I would ask my 18-year-old self to be kinder to herself. And this is a whole nother topic, but I would definitely, considering what I was going through at that age, I would tell my 18-year-old self that I can trust myself with food. And then I would ask her to practice telling people how she feels. And then I think, this is random, but just after I turned 18, I went traveling through the United States. And if I had to go back to that time, I would tell my 18-year-old self, you're going to meet a boy in Wisconsin. He's a very lovely boy. Make sure that you fuck him.
Oh my God, there's a few like that. I was too good. I was too good in my 20s. I was too much of a good girl. And for my own liking.
That's exactly, and I'm like, there's definitely I would not time travel for much else. People are always like, I had this thought the other day, people are like, if you had to go back in time, where would you go? And I wouldn't, because if I go back in time to the 1960s as me, it's shit. for Black people. If I go back to the 18th century, it's shit for Black people. So I would not go back in time, but I would go back to like,
not a good year.
Not a good year, but I'd go back to like 2013 and fuck that guy. But that's about it. That's about it. So I would
always, when you travel, have a pack of condoms and just and rock yourself.
Exactly.
So I like that. I don't think anyone. That's the first, by the way. No one's ever said that. Like, fuck more. It's
100% fuck more. Absolutely, that is what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, that's how I would tell myself too. So, what stuff do you not put up with anymore?
So the thing that I don't put up with anymore is that I no longer blame myself when it doesn't work out with a guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer hard on myself about it, because in the past, if I went on a bad date, even if the behavior wasn't my own, wasn't the poor behavior wasn't on my part, I would still carry that with me. I always used it as a reflection of me, like, this is as good as I can get. This is as good as I can be treated. Whereas actually, that person is their own separate person. They're responsible for their own actions. Most of the time, I hadn't really done anything to provoke poor behavior or bad behavior, but I would always carry that with me and take responsibility for that. So I don't do that anymore. If somebody behaves poorly, whether they do so via messaging or in person, however, I no longer take that responsibility. It's not just down to me to make a date good. Both people have to tango, and I want to tango with somebody. I want to find the right partner to have fun with, and that's something I don't do anymore.
And that's so important, because there's a difference between someone behaving badly, whether it's on you or not. It's like you said, it's not, you don't blame yourself. It's not on you, because it's got nothing to do with you. People are gonna act the way they need to act.
Yeah.
Unless we're out there provoking, insulting people, they're gonna defend.
No.
No. Behavior is on them, and it's like, whether it's them as a person or them having a bad day, but it's not on you. It becomes on you when you keep that person in your life and keep them treating you badly, right?
Yes, exactly.
And obviously some places, when we work, we have a bad boss, it's a bit harder to get away because we need to pay bills. But it's like when you're dating, you have a choice to not go on a second date.
Yeah, you have a choice to not go on a second date. And
exactly,
you don't just have to put up with things just because they're showing you attention.
Oh, absolutely not.
Exactly. Just because somebody is taking an interest in you doesn't necessarily mean that you have to humor them. You have to, go on a second date with them just because.
No, it shows they have good taste. It shows they have good taste.
They have good taste. And, as I've concluded, shitty people can have good taste.
Absolutely.
So,
they punch up.
Exactly. At least they're doing one thing right. They've gone on a date with you. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to, show them any favors or anything. And I would definitely say, like, there's just two more things, and that's like, I've learned as I've gotten a bit older, is that there's more than one way to be sexy.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And I definitely, when I was younger, I really thought that sexy was a very much an outward demonstration of sexy. And that was, and, I love heels. I love, putting myself together and the makeup and all that sort of stuff. But it was definitely an outward demonstration of sexy. And that, it's quite, for me, my experience was that it was an empty demonstration of sexy. I never felt sexy doing those things. I always looked like, right, I'm performing sexy. This is what a woman is supposed to look like. I look sexy, but I never felt sexy. And so it wasn't until I began to become more accepting of myself that I realized that there was more than one way to be sexy, and that it was more about the feeling inside.
Absolutely. It's an attitude.
Yeah,
you could be wearing baggy jeans, baggy jumper, and being the hottest thing to walk into the room.
You can. Men can pull that off. Definitely. I've been around men wearing,
But women too. So women too. Like, it doesn't have to be about skin, It's like, you don't have to show everything.
You don't have to show everything, 100%. And I guess as a follow-on from that, one thing that I have definitely started taking to heart is that, like I said earlier, I've often found that my dating life reflected what was going on in my own head. So when I felt the lowest is when I went on the worst dates. When I felt the best is when I went on the best dates.
Yes.
And so I have now come to a place where I kind of, like, feel the more accepting I have been of myself, and the more beauty I've seen in myself, even though, you know, I've also seen the ugly parts, the more accepting I have been of myself, the more beauty I've seen in the world. And it's kind of like a self-fulfilling cycle. So now, when I think of myself as sexy, I look around, I'm like, holy shit, everyone is sexy.
Yes.
You know, like, and it's a cycle now. Now I look around in the world and it's coming from a place of more self-acceptance. I'm like, I'm sexy, therefore the world is sexy, therefore I'm sexy, therefore the world is sexy, therefore I'm beautiful.
Absolutely. I know you said sexy, which does not necessarily mean about sex, but there's a great place where they represent many different types of bodies, people, sexuality, fetish stuff. And there's people like Leila Martin, there's people like Cindy Gallop, who's been on the show. She has a website called Make Love Not Porn, and it's basically real life people having sex. And then some of them are couples, some of them are people who like each other. They may not be in a couple, but it's not the amateur porn. It's actual people, something real happening between two people. And I mean, in terms of like Erika Lust is great too, but that's more like that's curated porn, that's proper porn. But
yeah,
there are people out there who show different sides of what it means what it looks like to have sex, what it's like to. Leila Martin talks a lot about, you know, just being your own queen, your own goddess, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it all looks so different, and to everyone, it feels different to everyone. And so I think there are definitely places now that we can look at. It's not, you know, a few years ago it was definitely a lot more difficult, but it's definitely starting to be more out there.
Yeah.
So, Shamiso, can you please tell us tell us all where we can find you? How do you want to connect with people? Where can people catch the Comedy Pops online show? Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So you can find me on Twitter under my name. So I'm at Shamiso Mushambi, and I'm also on Instagram under that name. And I have a Twitter account for Comedy Pops, which is at Comedy Pops, as well as a Facebook page. Does anybody still use Facebook?
I do.
I still use Facebook.
I do.
I am on there. So if you look up Comedy Pops, there's an online page, and you can sign up to follow. Yeah, and we're still putting together shows, and I'm looking at how to migrate this from an online community into the real world, real in inverted commas.
Yes.
But I love it, and you know, every time I do it, I switch on my camera, and I channel my inner Graham Norton, who I absolutely love.
Him.
I absolutely love Graham Norton.
I love him too.
He's like my spirit animal, and he's like, you know, what I strive to emulate on my show in terms of like comedy and chat and all that sort of stuff. And so we just have a good time. It's a very friendly community. Come along and look me up. Hey, if anybody wants to give me a show, if anybody wants to,
yes.
If Graham is retiring and they're like, what we need is a petite petite black lady to take over from him, I am her.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. I loved it. This has been so much fun, Shamiso. I can't wait to see the evolution of everything that you do. I can't wait to come and see. I hope that you're going to have some shows in London. I'll definitely come on and see the shows and support you and come and watch and being entertained. Absolutely been so much fun. Thank you so much for today, Shamiso.
Thank you, Angie.
And that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to rate, review, share it, subscribe it on iTunes, follow it on Spotify, or whichever platform you listen from. However you show love is how you can support this show. Drop me your questions or suggestions for future episodes via the website at angie-s.com, or come and find me on Instagram at Tool for This Shit Podcast. See you next week, and until then,
using health inappropriately.